So it went from a place of like of resentment to empathy. Um, and then she ended up dying less than a year later. And that moment was so crazy because I remembered the exact moment she died, even though I was thousands of miles away. I was at a red light and it felt like somebody reached in my heart. If my heart, let's say my heart was a puzzle, it's like they reached in my heart and took a puzzle piece out. And shortly before, like maybe like not even 5 minutes later, I get the call that she died. And I was on my way to work so that I could FaceTime her. Because she was already in hospice and she was refusing to eat and stuff and being like real ornery. And my friend who was a surgeon, she was on her oncology rotation in her residency. She was like, yeah, when they do that, that's usually the end. Like they're struggling to come to grips with like they're dying.
Yeah.
And so I knew like it was going to be within the next day or two she was gone. And she died or whatever. Went back to the Atlanta for the funeral. Um, it was quite the affair because she had burned so many bridges over the years that like when it became time to do the you know, anybody want to say something about the deceased, nobody got up. It was awkward. It felt like 5 minutes. It was probably closer to three. But you ever been to church and the pastor keep trying to get people to get saved and don't nobody come up and they just keep on doing? He was doing that. And so I'm sitting there on the front row and I'm getting mad. I'm like, somebody better say something. And eventually one of her like friends came up and then, you know, things kind of went. But yeah, that was wild. Like it was it was sad to see like how like, you know, and all of the stories about her that were positive were essentially from before I was born, you know. Um, and it was very, very, very sad to witness. And probably the thing that was so sad that kind of caught me off guard was her funeral pictures, where they were pictures from before I was born, and she was really pretty. And people used to tell me all the time, "You look just like your mom," but I only knew my mom as like a deformed person from like the arthritis and the drugs. And so she was never pretty to me. But like when I saw what she looked like before the drugs, I was like, man, like that's crazy how drugs can fuck you up that bad.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, so after that, you know, I moved to LA 2017 and you know, life improved a lot. You know, I started making way more money, but also my rent was hella high. So I wasn't like, you know, living good. And then that's kind of, I was like under a lot of stress. And that's kind of where I really wanted to try to get control over my finances and things like that and get my life together. And, but I just noticed that like I could never get shit done. And like when I would get home from work, I would feel so drained that like I couldn't do anything. And I was like, this is not right. And so shortly after I got here, I ended up getting a psychiatrist and a therapist and stuff. And so I was like, you know, let's get back on it. Um, and I was taking medicine and stuff, and it just wasn't working. So COVID comes around, and I'm by myself out here, and I'm just my mental health is slipping and slipping and slipping. And 2021 comes, and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And I broke up with my therapist at this time because she was a bitch. Like, you know, she would be telling me she was a black woman, but she was just has so much resentment in her towards black women and towards me sometimes. And we used to argue a lot. And I was like, yeah. I was like, this ain't working. I was like, you don't got to keep going to a therapist if it ain't working, you know? Um, and
So,
she
so real quick, what was her resentment towards black women rooted in?
that I don't know. But she used to tell me all the time, she'd be like, Jeremy, all black women have done is abuse you. I don't know why you date black women. And I'd
Wow.
be like, I mean, they abused me because they were abusive, not because they were black, you know.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know, I'm sure black, there were some factors in there, but it wasn't explicitly because they were black, you know. And I'm like, I'm not like, yes, I had resentment toward my mom, but you know, I don't think she was on drugs because she was black. I'm sure black played a role, but it wasn't the only thing, you know. It wasn't like she was out of my life because she was black or my father or any of that. And so she kept just we kept disagreeing on stuff like that. And eventually, and I used to have to deal with really bad traffic to get to her office. And I used to tell her, like, can we just do remote? And she'd be like, no, we need to be in person. And eventually I just got tired. And one time she told me I was never going to get married because um, I didn't understand feelings or something like that. And um, yeah, we disagreed about thoughts being linked to feelings. She was not somebody who believed in that. Um, but eventually I got tired of her. And so right before COVID, I just stopped going. COVID hits. I'm alone for a year plus by myself and like not getting any like mental help aside from my psychiatrist. So I'm taking my pills. But then eventually I went to him and I said, yo, like I can't live like this no more. I was like, I am taking these pills, they're not working. We got to do something differently. So somebody from Twitter who hit me, I think I've been tweeting about depression or something. So she sent me a DM. I was like, have you ever tried this treatment called TMS? And it's called transcranial magnetic stimulation or something like that. Basically, they like send electromagnetic waves into your head. Um, and I was like, no. She's like, it helped me. You should try it. So I went to my psychiatrist and said, can we try this? And he was like, yeah, man, that shit was so expensive and so time consuming. Had I not met my deductible already, I don't know what I would have done because it was like, I think almost $400 per session, 5 sessions per week for an
Wow.
hour for 7 weeks.
Shit.
So yeah, it was crazy. Now, luckily at this time we didn't have to pay student loans, and so I had more disposable income, and so I was able to afford the out of pocket cost or whatever. And I did that, and it was simultaneously the best thing that ever happened to me, but also the worst thing that ever happened to me. And when I finished, I finally realized that I had been depressed my entire life. I didn't realize that like life could be so bright and light. Like I didn't know that like I can get out of bed and brush my teeth and shower and all of these things without it being an ordeal and like having to talk myself up and like slogging through it and feeling drained afterwards. It was like I had been wearing sunglasses my whole life and somebody took them off, you know. And I was like, wow, you know, I can't believe other people live like this. Like, is this what everybody else deals with of just being able to do what you're supposed to do to take care of yourself? Well, it was great until it wasn't. And so uh, I felt great for like, you know, the whole summer and stuff. Then funny thing is the doctor told me, he said, the people who this doesn't work for, something they have in common is they smoke weed. Now, I never smoked weed in my life until I moved to LA, but you know, it's legal, it's easy to access. You can do research, all this shit. And so I started smoking hella weed, but I stopped for this treatment and I had stopped afterward. But I was seeing this girl and we broke up or whatever. And I was bored. I had nobody to talk to after work no more. So I started back smoking weed. And slowly my life started to unravel. And that good feeling that I was feeling from the brain electrocution or whatever, it just started to like spiral out of control. And I was just spending, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars more than usual. And it's so funny because Bomani had because in 2020 I had paid off all of my debts. All I had was student loan debt. I had nothing else, no credit cards, no nothing. My car's paid off, all that. Oh, and then one thing. Oh, so after I like did this brain whatever shit, I was feeling so good. So I thought my life was finally coming together. And so I go out and spend $100,000 on a Mercedes, like an idiot. But I didn't have, you know, any other debts or anything, and so it was fine, you know. Um, but that was kind of like the beginning of me making rash, impulsive choices. Like I saw this car online. It looked ugly in the picture, but I like text the salesperson and she sent me a real picture of it. And it was like this matte blue AMG coupe. And I fell in love. And this was like 4:30 in the afternoon. And she was like, are you interested in it? And I was like, can I come? I was gonna come like on the weekend. And she was like, oh, this won't last long. And I was like, well, what time y'all close today? I drove through traffic up there and was signing the paperwork on a fucking $100,000 car without doing any kind of budget analysis, no nothing. That was kind of like the first like super rash bad decision that I started to make because I was kind of like above my happiness threshold where I was like teetering into mania, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, and it wasn't, you know, luckily I'm fortunate that it's never got Kanye bad. But I do have a great deal of empathy for Kanye. Um, but he is responsible for his actions, you know. But there is a reason why he acts like he does, you know. But so I started back smoking weed in September of that year. And Bomani had told, you know, we had been talking, and I was like, you know, Bo, I want to get my finances together. I want to start saving more money. You know, can you put me up to with your money guy? Because Bomani was able to grow his money, you know, pretty significantly with this guy. Bomani gives me the guy's contact. And I'm like, cool. When I get my bonus this year, I'm gonna invest it. Bonus time comes around. I think my bonus is like, I don't know, 70 grand or something like that. So after taxes, I had like $55,000 in my bank account. I never had that much money in my bank account in my life. I don't know anybody who had that much money in their bank account in their life. And man, I went crazy. I just started spending and spending and spending and spending. And I don't know what I bought. I know I went on a trip. I got a new apartment that was another bad, like rash decision uh, where I saw it, you know, took a tour and immediately signed a lease. Didn't think about, can I afford this? How does this fit into my budget? And so I'd also gotten a raise at work, so I was making way more money. So I did have more money, but like I didn't think about long term. Like I didn't think about like what was beyond like what was right in front of me. And I don't know what happened, but I think January or maybe February of 2022, I get an alert on my phone from the Rocket Money app. And they say, I forgot what it was, but it was something about Jeremy. It was something like, Jeremy, you spent like, you know, $12,000 last month. And that's X amount
Wow.
more. And I finally opened up the app because I've been ignoring it because, you know, I'm living the best time of my life. And all my friends, they're seeing me finally after COVID. Jeremy, you look so happy. Everything looks so great. You seem so cheerful. Meanwhile, I'm like spiraling, but like I live alone. So there's nobody to like notice that like this is a little too high, and I finally go into the app and I look at my spending and it was like every month from like the summer, just more every month, more and more spending. And it wasn't by like a hundred, it was by thousands or more. And I realized that I blew through my whole bonus in like less than 2 months.
Wow.
Um, and that's kind of like, I think last year I took like a break from Twitter because I was like, I gotta get the wheels back on. And I finally like told my friends, you know, I was so ashamed. I was crying so bad that, and I was like, you know, I fucked my life up because I finally got my life to where I had the only bill I had that was debt was my student loans, and it was on pause. So, I had like, I had saved up so much money in my savings, but then I started having to, I noticed like I was liquidating my savings to pay off my credit card because I got an Amex because I knew that you couldn't carry a balance. Well, Amex gonna want it all every month. And so I kept having to liquidate my savings. And at first it'll be like, oh, just a little 500 here. And then it became thousands to try to pay off that Amex. And so by the time I finally like came to, I liquidated my savings, blown through my bonus. Like the Bomani's money guy, he hit me up, but like by the time at that point, I blew through all my money, so I never responded. Um, and yeah, I was like, I got to get my life together. And yeah, it was a mess. So basically, I did end up going to the Monaco Grand Prix. That was another one of my rash decisions that while I was manic, because Lewis Hamilton got cheated out of his championship, and I was so mad. That so I'm going to the Monaco Grand Prix before he retires, and so I booked this like super lavish vacation and didn't think twice about it, and just that kind of this really rash, like not thinking beyond what's right in front of me.
Yeah.
Um, and man, I've been trying to clean up the mess ever since. Um, but now it's things are a lot better. I've been like I got a new therapist and shit. Dude's amazing. Funny thing, on our first visit, he says, gives me this questionnaire and about childhood trauma. He says, "Oh, did you experience all these things in your childhood?" It's like 15 questions. So we finish, and he says, usually people who have 3 of these on their checklist end up in prison. You have 13. You it's like you are very fortunate that your life didn't turn out the way that it could have. And it can really kind of put things in perspective. Like every bad thing that turns people into serial killers happened to me, but instead I kind of turned out to be the exact opposite. Somebody with a humongous heart who's super loving. But it could have turned out differently had I not been proactive about like handling my mental health and stuff.
Yeah.
It was something I wouldn't have been able to talk about had do you know Basi Ikpi?
Yeah.
So she wrote her book, and I started following her on Twitter because for my graduation gift in college, my girlfriend got me Def Poetry Jam DVDs because I used to do slam poetry, which was bad, but so I knew her from that, so I started following her on Twitter. And so she wrote her book, I think 2018. I'm telling the truth, but I'm lying. And I always admired how she was so open about her mental health. And I used to be like, I can't do that. I'm too ashamed. I didn't tell anybody. And when I read that book, that finally gave me the courage to tell my friends. And so I sent them all a copy of her book and stuff. And I said, hey, try to read this. This is kind of some of the things I go through. And it kind of gave me the courage to kind of start speaking up. Then in 2021, when I was getting the like brain electrocution or whatever you want to call it, that's when I finally told my family. They didn't know anything. I'm like pretty estranged from my family. Um, just I've been out forming my own path, and they didn't help me get here, and instead they take a lot, they ask a lot, but they never help, and so we just kind of grew further and further apart, as I've been away from Atlanta. But I finally like told them like, hey, this is what I'm dealing with, and my life isn't as good as y'all might think it is because no matter how much money I have, there's this big fucking elephant that's always there. But yeah, now 2023, I had to take a break from Twitter because my depression had got really bad. And it turns out I have treatment resistant depression, and which means like the regular shit don't work for me. It don't. Now we start taking meds that like don't got nothing to do with depression. And luckily we found something that makes me feel a lot better. So maybe I'll be back on social media one day, but I was spending like double-digit hours on social media, and that's just insane. So I should take a
Yeah.
break. But I definitely miss it. My life is lacking so much humor without Twitter. You forget how funny Twitter is when you're not on it. So, but yeah, now everything's a lot better. And I think for me, like I have a girlfriend who's incredible, but being with somebody kind of forces you to be proactive about ending your suffering. It's like if I'm going to be depressed and it's just me, I can power through. I'm able to go do my job and stuff like that. But it wipes me out, and I have to, I go to sleep and stuff. And but now it's like, well, there's somebody else who needs my time and my energy, and I want to be the best I can be for her,
Yeah.
and can't just let myself wallow in this shit. So, got to be proactive and take charge, and don't let the suffering continue longer than it has to. Because unfortunately, like when you're bipolar 2, you are depressed way more than you're hypomanic. And I would say like it's probably like 80% of the time you're gonna be depressed, but varying levels. It's not always like, oh, I don't want to, like, it's not like every day I want to kill myself or something, but it's like your body just doesn't want to keep you alive sometimes. It just it just feels like my brain will just be like, yo, did you just work out? Did you just do something that's good for you? Well, fine, I'm throwing up my hands. I'm not gonna give you no more energy for the rest of the day. And you'd be like, damn, I did everything they told me to do. And now I'm like, I can't do nothing else. So,
Yeah.
but I do like, when I have somebody who's expecting me to be there and to be a good man, like I need to find something. So fortunately, I was able to find like a new medication combination. It'll be working until one day it doesn't. And then when that day comes, we'll start something new and get back on the horse. But my life could have turned out so much more differently if I didn't be proactive.
And kudos to you for, really being diligent with your trying to figure out the method to the madness, so to speak. And I mean, even going so far as to, you know, cutting out Twitter. I mean, that is hard to do.
It is
And
really,
you've managed to do that, and you're doing that in order to basically better yourself. And seriously,
yeah.
kudos to you for doing that, because again, that's not an easy thing to do.
It's crazy because like I knew I needed to work out, right? They always say, oh, if you're depressed, you got to work out. And I would wake up early in the morning, like 6 a.m., and I would start work till like 9. And then I'll be on fucking Twitter that whole 3+ hours, and I'll start work till 11. And it's like, well, I've been wasted 5 hours on Twitter. This is time I could have gone for a walk. I could have been on the Peloton. I could have just done anything, but I'm just on Twitter, and I was like, I gotta cut that out. So
Yeah.
that's what I've been trying to do and stuff. And, you know, um, power through. But I do miss Twitter. I love Twitter. I made so many great relationships because of it. I'll probably be back in the new year. But yeah, the time away has definitely been good for me. I probably won't be back on IG though. Like I don't miss that.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely Twitter. I had a community there, and people have been great about hitting me up, and checking on me. And that makes me realize, like, even though these are online relationships, or they started online, these are real bonds, and people give a fuck, so
Yeah.
it's been great. But yeah, I've been rambling for 2.5 hours. So
It's all good, man. So let's lighten the mood a little bit. So
all
let's
right.
let's get into some of the sports shit. So
Mhm.
Falcons, similar to Bomani, you weaned yourself off that narcotic.
Yeah.
So yeah, talk about that.
So the 28-3 Super Bowl was on my birthday. That's unforgivable. That was all I needed. Like if they had lost a close one or just got beat down, that would have been fine. But you lose in historic fashion in a choke job that only an Atlanta sports team can do. I was like, all right, it's a wrap. Deleted them off my phone. Have not watched a snap of Falcons football to this day. If they come on Red Zone channel, I change it. I do not care. I don't want to see them. I don't follow them at all. I only root against them. And luckily for me, UGA has been good. We finally got over the mountaintop, but at least UGA gave me competitiveness year in and year out, but
Yeah.
not so. Yeah, fuck them. Same way with the Braves. I stopped rooting for them when they moved to Cobb. We got that Super Bowl, that World Series in '95, but it was a lot of heartbreak as a kid. And once they moved out of Atlanta, I was like, you know what? Fuck it. It's my chance to make a clean break. they won their World Series, and I was like, I don't care. So now I root for the Dodgers, but mostly because me and Charmaine be going to Dodgers games, and I like it. She be having a good season,
Hey,
so
there you go.
I got
So, how did you get into Formula One?
COVID. Drive to Survive on Netflix. I started watching that, and then Rick. Do you know Rick, the chiropractor dude?
Yeah, I had him on the pod too.
Oh, okay. I'd listen to that episode. We were supposed to link up Sunday, but this nigga was too tired after he got back from the Chargers game, so we didn't end up linking up. But my girlfriend was like, "Well, I got dressed up, so we going somewhere." So me and her ended up going out. But so yeah, so I was watching it, and then he told me about Lewis Hamilton, and he was like, "Yeah," he was like, "Do you know who Lewis Hamilton is?" And I was like, "No." He's like, "Oh, he's black." And he was like, "And he's a nigga." And I was like, "Oh." And so I started looking into him, and I was like, "Wait, so like, not only is he black, but he's like the greatest ever?" I was like, "Well, of course, I'm down." So ever since then, so they were on break at this time in Formula One, but when they came back, I haven't missed a race since. I wake up at like 5. Sometimes it's as early as like 4 a.m., depending on like when they race in the Middle East and stuff like that. To watch the races. Haven't missed a race since. Went to the Monaco Grand Prix. Got to see him there. I'm not going to go to the Vegas Grand Prix because I think it's going to be trash, but maybe next year I'll go. But yeah, he's my guy. And then like he's essentially who I wish Tiger Woods was, where like he's another biracial, but like he doesn't try to hide from his blackness or like separate himself from blackness in a way that Tiger does. Like Tiger don't got no black people in his inner circle. You don't see him hanging out with no black people except for when he used to kick it with like Charles Barkley and them.
Yeah.
Where Lewis is the opposite. Lewis is always speaking out and trying to do the right thing. And I just really admire that about him. So that's really, really my guy. I got a fucking whole Mercedes Formula One rig right here behind me for video games. Um,
Oh,
so
so you fully committed to it.
yeah, another impulse purchase that I had to go all the way out and get the best of the best that I can get. But yeah, I love it. Even got Mercedes racing shoes.
Oh, the flat foot Pumas. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So I'm
Totally
hard.
committed.
Yeah, I get really obsessed about my hobbies. It's probably the ADHD, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't do any hobby halfway. So my girlfriend laughs at me. She's like, "You don't even smoke weed," and I got like a whole like drawer of just every weed gadget you can. Any way to consume weed, I got it. Any way that I've tried it, but now I'm just like, no, no weed for me.
Now,
But yeah.
How'd you get into English football?
So welcome to Wrexham. That documentary, I just really I couldn't believe that people give a fuck about a team that's like so far below the top of the soccer pyramid. And I was like, what is that about? And I tried to draw like American parallels, and I couldn't really. I thought maybe minor league baseball, but yeah, it was just like, how can they care so much? And so I started like getting more into it. And obviously I was rooting for Wrexham to get promoted to back into like what they call league football. And I've been keeping up with them. And then Lewis Hamilton is an Arsenal fan. And so I was listening to this Formula One podcast called Quick Stop. It's by these black English people from London. And the host is an Arsenal supporter. So I was like, oh, well, let me check out Arsenal. And it just so happens that Arsenal's on the rebound. They're like historically a great team, but like they had some rough years and they're kind of on the way back. And then last year they almost won the league and stuff. And so that really got me rooting for them, like, watching them try to win the league. And now another sport where I got to wake up at 7 a.m. to watch motherfuckers kick a ball around. But I enjoy it. And then like the more I watch, so now I watch La Liga. Sometimes I watch Real Madrid because they got this kid, Jude Bellingham, who is like 20 years old and is a beast, black kid. and I watch like Bundesliga sometimes, Serie A. So, but I it started to like kind of because I think Americans we get mad because there aren't a lot of goals a lot of times. But like once I started appreciating the beauty of like trying to create a goal scoring opportunity and stuff, I was like, okay, it doesn't always work out, but it's like, your team doesn't score every drive in football and we still watch.
That's a
So I
good
started
point.
to appreciate the beauty of the game and just how worldwide it is. Because I used to always watch the World Cup, but I never really got into club soccer. And so
Yeah.
now I even watch MLS only because of Messi. But yeah, I watch a lot of soccer now, so I like it a lot.
Hey, and that's something I'm still warming myself up to. I mean, like I watch my local club in their league, and like they lost Charleston Battery, they lost in the USL championship game a couple nights ago. But as far as like the club stuff overseas, I'm still I'm still wet behind the ears with that. So eventually
Yeah,
I'll get myself acclimated to it.
well, I just started like the documentaries is really what got me into it, and I started reading about the hooligans and like watching hooligan documentaries, and like people really give a fuck. It's crazy,
Yeah.
man. I was like, there got to be something to this, and I just started like trying to read more and watch more, and it's crazy. I don't think I could ever care about it to the level that they do, but I enjoy it. And most of the time, like if the game's before 7 a.m., then I might not wake up and watch it, but I do wake up pretty early to watch it every weekend.
Word. So now we're going to get into the 5 question segment. So first and last question are the same question I ask every guest I have on here. Questions 2 through 4 are 100% random. So question number 1: what were Jay Full's go-to school lunch items?
I've been thinking about this for a week. Um, it was not because like I always went to schools with bad lunch. But I always, no matter where school I went to, the Thanksgiving lunch was always my favorite. I love the Thanksgiving lunch with the cranberry and the gravy and shit and the turkey. I love that. And then the other thing I used to really like that's so weird, we used to get milk in these little pouches, like, and I don't know, it just tastes different to me than the other milk. And it just always felt like it was colder than the other milk. So I always like that. And then breakfast pizza. I fuck with some breakfast pizza, especially when they used to put
Yes.
on these little bagel bite kind of things. I used to love that. So
On the
those,
back. Oh, the bagel bite.
yeah.
No shit. Yeah, we didn't have we had the breakfast pizza. We didn't have it on the bagel bite, man. Let's see. Question number 2.
Mhm.
You're stranded on an island. What are 3 albums that you bring with you?
Oof. Um, when you ask other people this, I always try to think of it for myself, but let me see. Hmm. Maybe Kanye's Life of Pablo album. That was the last time I saw him in concert and was like my last kind of before he did a rant, and that's kind of when he started to slip away.
Yeah.
And I love the production on that album, and it really bangs in the whip. So I'll probably pick that. Um, Probably either AT Aliens or Equipment by Outkast. Um, those are like two of my favorite albums. Um, and then Bad Self Portraits by Lake Street Dive. They're a band out of the Northeast. It's a white group. I found them because they did a cover of Michael Jackson's "I Want You Back" on YouTube, and I've been hooked ever since. They play. It's only one singer. This lady Rachel Price, and she can blow. And their music is kind of a mix between like rock and soul. Is the funny thing is the more successful they've gotten, the more kind of less soul their music has gotten, but they make it work. And they produce a lot of like interesting sounds, and they're all great like instrumentalists and stuff like that. I really admire that. So
And
those
you said the name of the group is what now? Lake Street
Lake
Straight
Lake
Street
Street
Drive.
Dive.
Dive. Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna check them out. Question number 3, you actually covered that earlier in this episode. My third question was going to be, what's the highest you've ever gotten? But you already covered
Oh,
that.
yeah. That time, the fucking Coke and the hash. It was December because it was the end of the semester party, and it was like 3 a.m. and I'm sitting on this bridge, and at this point they had already built up, but they had replaced the prison gates, the prison fences. They had like razor wire on these bridges, but they had replaced them with like these more aesthetically pleasing fences. And so I was just sitting on this like footbridge overlooking this beautiful gorge with like a waterfall that's like trying to freeze. It's like half frozen. So you can hear the water, but it's not actually flowing. And it was the most beautiful thing I ever seen, man. And I was just sitting there like, wow. And I was not wearing a coat. And it had to be single digits. I was so fucking high, man. When I got back home, my fucking hands were purple. I was
Damn.
like, man, it was crazy.
Question number 4, who's your least favorite Duke player?
Oh, geez. Oh man. Probably say Grayson, but like he won a championship and he was instrumental. So um yeah, I'll probably say Grayson. I also didn't like Josh McRoberts. Um, a lot of guys off the bench that I just didn't like, but mostly Grayson, just because he's annoying in the NBA, but he's like good enough to stick around on a team, but he
Yeah.
just act right, you know. So probably him.
Word, word. And last question, what was the last thing that really made you laugh?
Ooh. Um, I haven't laughed in a minute. Probably something from a podcast. Probably Black Guy Who Tips or Three Guys On.
Oh, of course.
I watch a lot of that. Um, Probably something from one of those podcasts.
Word, word. So Jeremy, man, this bro, you stood and delivered. And when you said you had a story to tell, I didn't realize it was going to be like this grandiose and just so many peaks and valleys, man. This was
I'm
like a this
very
bro, this wasn't even a podcast. This felt like a motion picture, man. Seriously.
people tell me I should write a book. I've tried, but I just get so overwhelmed by all the shit that happened. And I start remembering shit because there's
Mhm.
so much I just have blocked out. Like I try to like my memory is kind of segmented pre 2003 and then post 2003 where I like took control of my own life. But yeah, man, it's been a crazy life, and I've been very fortunate that the bad things haven't been catastrophic, and that I've had the will to keep fighting and pushing through, my circumstances and not letting it defeat me. So I could have given up many times, but I'm fortunate and I'm happy that I haven't.
Right on, right on. Is there anything you want to plug or promote?
Uh, not really.
Okay.
I used to have a blog back there on the internet. So if you want to cancel me, you can check it out. It's called Ivy League Neck Tats, NECK. That blog came about because when I got to Cornell, my friend Lawana, she said, "What you doing, a nigga with a neck?" She said, "What's a nigga with a neck tat doing in the Ivy Leagues?" And we've been best friends ever since. So and end up naming my blog. But I haven't blogged in years, but I haven't deleted the blog because it's a reminder of like how problematic I used to be and a lot of the things I thought. And sometimes I go back and I'm like, I'm glad I evolved from a lot of that stuff. And yeah, so keeps me humble. But I stopped paying for the domain at least. So it's harder to find. Yep, that's out there. I'll probably be back on Twitter. My handle is jfull1914. Same on my IG, but I'm off of those right now. I'll probably be back in the new year if I can get consistent with my like morning workout routine. That's the big barrier for me because I was spending so much time on social media. So if I can get on this Peloton consistently, I might come.
There you
But
go.
if it's to DM me, I do have the app, so I can, and I only have the DM notifications turned on. So if anybody wants to DM me, and for everybody wondering if I'm okay, I'm okay. Doing so much better. My life is much improved. And if you're out there and your mental health is struggling, you don't have to suffer forever. You can do something, and if something isn't working, you can change it and try something else until you find it what works. And it's a lot of trial and error, but you can't give up, you know. And I hope that's what people took from me talking about my struggles is like, you know, things didn't always go right, but I kind of knew that my life needed to be different. And even though I failed a lot and I fucked up a lot, I kept pushing. So yeah, that's all.
A testament of perseverance. Gotta respect it.
Absolutely.
So thank you all for listening. Make sure you like, download, subscribe to Since We Last Spoke with Danny Foxworth. Make sure you check out my YouTube channel at Danny Foxworth 843. Make sure you subscribe there. You can find all of my videos, all my podcast episodes there. And for Jeremy and myself, this has been another episode of Since We Last Spoke. And until next time, y'all be good. Peace.